This is Mr. Lyle A Bubba, and welcome to another installment of Pokemon Competitive Bios. This week's Pokemon is Hariyama. Hariyama, introduced in Generation 3, is a mono fighting type that is currently in the RU, which stands for Rarely Used tier. In this video, I'm going to overview the stats, move pool, abilities, typing, and counters of Hariyama, give them all letter grades, and then give an overall letter grade for the usefulness of Hariyama at the end of the video, as well as suggesting an unorthodox set that you could run on this Pokemon to be successful in competitive play. Beginning with Hariyama's stats. If you'll take a look at Hariyama's stats, it has an HP stat of 144, an attack stat of 120, a defense stat of 60, a special attack stat of 40, a special defense stat of 60, and a speed stat of 50. Now the grade that I chose to give Hariyama was a B. This is due to its great HP and attack, giving it both bulk and offensiveness, but the problem is it doesn't have anything to back those stats up. It doesn't have any defenses to back up its massive HP stat, and it's not a mixed attacker with its special attack, nor does it have any speed to help out its attack. So definitely really good stats in HP and attack, but again, nothing to really go with that to help with walling or sweeping. On to Hariyama's move pool. The grade I chose to give Hariyama's move pool was a B-. That is because it gets stab moves from both close combat and dynamic punch. It also has access to Earthquake, which though it doesn't help it out much when it comes to types, it still is a very powerful physical move. And it can also cover weaknesses with Ice and Thunder Punch. The problem with its move pool is outside of those moves, it's very limited. It does not have much to go for. It can have access to things like Bulk Up, but as you'll see later on in the video, those aren't completely viable options. On to Hariyama's abilities. Hariyama has access to 3 abilities, those 3 being Thick Fat, Guts, and Sheer Force. I'm going to look at all 3. For an overall grade for abilities, I gave Hariyama a B+. Thick Fat is usable and can help with bulk, but the problem is it's not very good outside of that. Because of the fact that it does have very low defenses, Thick Fat isn't as good of an ability for Hariyama as it could be. Of course, it does have a massive HP stat, so that is going to help Thick Fat be much more usable. When it comes to Guts, I would say that of its released abilities, Guts is the best. It increases its attack by 50 when it's afflicted with a status condition, so you can run something like a Toxic Orb or a Flame Orb set with Hariyama, and you'll be able to take advantage of that wonderful attack stat. Its hidden ability, and possibly the best out of the 3, is Sheer Force, and this increases the power of moves with secondary effects by 30%, however it removes the extra effect. Now you could see something like this with Rock Slide or the Elemental Punches. Now the problem with this is it is its hidden ability, and just as well it doesn't have very powerful moves to go with Sheer Force, and it does have a very limited move pool when it comes to status inflicting moves. When it comes to Hariyama's typing, I would have to say it's very average. It has a very typical mono fighting type typing. That is why I chose to give Hariyama a B-. It doesn't have any immunities, however it doesn't have any 4x weaknesses. It's just sort of a middle of the road average typing, I guess you could say. There's not really anything special to talk about when it comes to Hariyama's typing. On to counters. The grade I chose to give Hariyama was a C. Special attackers, especially things like Moltres and Sigilyph, can definitely cripple Hariyama. So can defensive ones who can take its massive hits like Slowking and Mesprit. These Pokemon can easily take hits from Hariyama, and because of Hariyama's decent frailty, they can really hurt this thing. Ghost types can also be completely immune to its stab moves, and these would be like Misdreavus and Spiritomb, and those can easily take out a Hariyama and be a big problem if you're trying to use a Hariyama on your team. So there are definitely a lot of potent counters against Hariyama in RU, and that is why I chose to give a grade of a C to Hariyama's counters. Now that I've looked at all this, it's time to give Hariyama an overall grade for its usefulness. The grade that I chose to give Hariyama was a B. That is because it has strange, but definitely passable stats. They're a little bit unorthodox, having really just HP and attack and nothing to back those up whatsoever. It's a very strange distribution. Its move pool is somewhat limited, however, it does have some decent moves that are usable, and that's why it didn't get a terrible grade when it comes to move pool. It has very well-rounded abilities, and by that I mean that all three of its abilities are used. They are definitely, if you play RU and you are facing a Hariyama, I would beware of any of the three abilities. All three of them are used fairly regularly. It has a very average typing and plentiful counters, and that's sort of the downfall of Hariyama. The rest of it isn't too stellar, but it's definitely a usable Pokemon, and that's why I chose to give it a B. It's not a good grade per se, but it's not a bad one whatsoever. Hariyama is definitely usable. I would suggest using this if you want to be a little bit out of the ordinary and maybe catch an RU opponent off guard with an unorthodox set, because you typically see Gallade being the standard fighting type in RU, but Hariyama is definitely usable, and it can definitely be a threat if you underestimate it. That is why I chose to give Hariyama a B for its overall usefulness. And this is the part of the video that I like to call Mr. Lyle A Bubba Suggests. This is where I suggest a set that you could run on the Pokemon featured in the video to possibly be successful in competitive play in a somewhat unorthodox way. This week's feature is, of course, Hariyama. Now, I will start by explaining the moveset that I have chosen to run on this Hariyama set. The first move is Bulk Up. That is going to allow Hariyama to raise both its attack and defense at the same time. That is going to come in handy a lot with this Pokemon. This isn't typically a move that's run on Hariyama, but if you follow this strategy, you may be able to pull it off. The next move is Ice Punch. This is going to help with covering a very crucial flying type weakness. And it's also going to get a boost from the ability that you would run on this Hariyama set. As will the next move, Thunder Punch. This move also covers flying type weakness. It just also helps to cover flying types that may not be affected by Ice Punch, and vice versa when it comes to Thunder Punch. The final move is probably the most unorthodox out of the entire moveset, and that is Force Palm. This move only has 60 base power, and that's why you typically don't see it in competitive play. But with the boost of both the ability that this Hariyama will be running and same type attack bonus, you can get that power up to 117, as well as whatever you can get boosted to with Bulk Up. So that is a basic overview of what the moveset should be. The EV yield I would go with is plus 252 in defense, plus 200 in HP, and the remaining 56 into attack. The nature I've chosen is mild. That is going to lower special attack and raise defense. Of course, this Hariyama will not need special attack because it isn't using special moves, and Hariyama doesn't typically use special moves in the first place. And also, the raised defense is going to be very important because it does have low base defense, so you need to raise it as much as you possibly can. The item is kind of a given, it's the Leftovers. I don't really see another item that you could run on this set to really do much at all. I would just stick with the Leftovers. You could use something like the Life Orb, but it would be really, really risky, seeing as this Pokemon is very slow. The ability, of course, that I've chosen is Sheer Force. That is, of course, its hidden ability, so you are going to have to get this Hariyama from the Dream World, unless you are playing something like Pokemon Online, or using something like Pokegen. Now, the way that this all pieces together is that Sheer Force is going to raise the power of Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, and Force Palm. Of course, it will get rid of the opportunities for Paralysis and Freezing, but that will be perfectly okay. Now, this is very risky. It's a very risky set, I must say. It's probably the riskiest that I have shown in this segment of the videos so far, because any special type attacker can come in and ruin this set And just as well, you can easily be messed up if you don't get a couple of bulk ups first. So make sure if you're going to use this Pokemon, you have to get a clean switch in so that you can get a bulk up or two off before you begin attacking. That is very, very important. Unless you switch into something that you know Hariyama can take hits from, it's very, very important to get bulk ups off, because that is going to help you raise your defense and your attacks so that you actually have some sort of bulk, because this Pokemon does have a lot of HP and there is a lot of HP investment, but there is not a lot of defenses there to back it up, so you need to get as many boosts as you can onto that defense stat. And if anything comes in faster than you on the first turn or two that you're in, this could be a complete failure and a complete one-hit KO. So again, one of the riskiest sets that I have suggested so far, but I believe that if you pull this off, it can really be a threat. This Hariyama can really be a threat if you use it correctly and use it to its full strategy. That is going to be it for Mr. Lyle A Bubba Suggests, and it's also going to be it for this episode of Pokemon Competitive Bios. Thank you for watching. Please remember to leave a rate and subscribe to my channel, and also comment on this video if you enjoyed it and you would like to see more, and stay tuned next week for the next installment of Pokemon Competitive Bios.